High-level talks between Mexico and the United States on the migration crisis were resumed on Friday at the State Department in Washington, D.C. UNICEF declared Gaza the most dangerous place in the world for children due to the increasing Israeli bombardments. And Mexico and Chile asked the International Criminal Court to investigate possible crimes against civilians in Gaza. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. High-level talks between Mexico and the United States on the migration crisis were resumed on Friday at the State Department in Washington, D.C., capital of the U.S. The meeting was attended by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Mexican Foreign Minister Alicia Bárcena, and also included the presence of U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas and Homeland Security Advisor to President Joe Biden, Liz Sherwood Randall. The session reflects the White House firm stance on the immigration issue, as congressional Republicans demand action to curb its influence. Measures are expected to be announced in response to the immigration situation in both countries.
We, as Mexico, have the intention to help, to support in this great task, great battle that we are all living, which is the high human mobility. It is not only a problem of our region. The whole world is going through a crisis of this difference. But that is why we want to take that road, the road of Robert Frost, the road less transited, but that is going to make the difference. It is going to make a difference for our people, especially on both sides of the border where we are. Look at what happened last year. We received 33 million Americans in Mexico as tourists. So, that speaks of the huge relation we have and the million of Mexicans who live in the United States and make a contribution.
Mexico's Foreign Minister Alicia Bárcena highlighted the great bilateral relationship that Mexico maintains with the government of the United States.
To meet very soon in Mexico, in short. Of course, the arms issue, which is something that concerns us, but without a doubt, I believe that we have a strong, resilient, deep and affectionate bilateral relationship, and I believe that is what we want for the benefit of our nations. Thank you very much. We are very happy to be here today, on this cold, beautiful day, and we love being in Washington today.
Ecuador's security forces intervened on Friday in the Guayas prison known as the Litoral, located in the city of Guayaquil. The commander of Zone 8 of the police, Victor Herrera, named among the prisoners, inspected the Social Rehabilitation Center of Guayas and the Inca prison in north of Quito. These operations in different centers take place in the middle of the state of exception that has been enforced since last week, decreed by President Daniel Noboa. According to police reports, 80 mobile terminals and 36 bladed weapons were seized. In this regard, the police commander assured that the operation will last several days until total control is achieved. In Colombia, the head of the government delegation, Camilo González, expressed the desire to pick up the pace of the talks to tell the country that they are on a new path for the construction of peace. In that sense, it was reported that the next round of talks between the Central General Staff of the extinct Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia and the Colombian government will take place from March 3rd to 10th in San José del Guaviare, capital of the department of the same name, located in Colombia. Brazil took an important step towards energy sovereignty this week, announcing it will restart an important project that was nearly destroyed by Operation Car Wash. Our reporter Brian Meyer has more.
The Brazilian government has announced a $17 billion investment to resume construction of a second refinery at the Abreu e Lima plant in Pernambuco, with the goal of increasing Brazil's diesel production by 40% and generating 30,000 jobs. Construction was halted in 2017 as part of the Michel Temer administration's policy of dismantling the national petroleum company, Petrobras.
Esse sonho This dream is only coming true, comrades, because of a lot of fighting. It was the workers who held protests, work stoppages and strikes. President Lula, in fact, we held the second largest strike in petroleum workers' history in 2020, when we occupied paper traders' headquarters and paralyzed our activities for 21 days during the previous anti-democratic and fascist government.
In 2017, after a few executives were convicted of corruption as part of the now disgraced Operation Car Wash investigation, instead of treating Petrobras as too big to fail, which is what countries in the global north do in similar situations, the government began dismantling the company. Tens of thousands of workers were laid off, and Brazil lost its self-sufficiency in energy production. Consequently, Brazil now imports $11 billion a year in gas and diesel from the United States.
Tudo que aconteceu neste país.
Everything that happened in this country was caused by collusion between some judges and public prosecutors who were subordinated to the Department of Justice of the United States, which never accepted the idea of Brazil having a company like Petrobras.
Profits from the new refinery are expected to fully pay back the investment cost in 18 months. Brian Mir, teleSUR, Pernambuco.
In Peru, the judiciary accepted on Thursday the appeal filed by former President Pedro Castillo to review the 36-month preventive detention measure against him. The measure was ordered by the Supreme Court of Preparatory Investigation, which considers that the appeal has the necessary requirements. In view of this, the Preparatory Investigation Court decided to grant the appeal and submit the request to the Permanent Criminal Chamber of this high institution. Castillo is being held in preventive custody for 36 months since he is being investigated for the alleged crimes of criminal organization, collusion, and influence peddling, among others. Central Workers Union of Argentina denounces that citizens have lost 20% of their purchasing power due to inflation. According to the report of the union, the inflation of over 25% was generated in the month of December 2023, a situation that led to the fall of salaries. Likewise, the increase of inflation also devaluated the purchasing level, since the increase of the prices of basic food and basket and goods and services is maintained. Despite this situation, the government authorities have not yet summoned the Minimum Salary Council to define its update. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. All the stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. UNICEF declared Gaza the most dangerous place in the world for children due to the increasing Israeli siege against the Palestinian enclave. Deputy Executive Director for the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, Ted Chaiban, said that no one seems to listen to the living conditions of the Palestinian children. On the other hand, the Euro-Mediterranean Observatory for Human Rights pointed out that since the Israeli genocide case was brought before the International Court of Justice, the occupation forces have killed more than 1,000 people in Gaza. Furthermore, the organization denounced that, contrary to what the Israeli lawyers have said, the facts show that Israel has never stopped its crimes against the population. A United Nations human rights official has called for an end to the mistreatment of Palestinian detainees by Israeli security forces in the Gaza Strip. During his visit to Gaza, the United Nations official reported on Friday that Palestinian men were held by Israeli forces from 30 to 55 days in unknown locations and subjected to physical abuse. The report was based on people released and met by the United Nations official during his visit. According to the report, they were released in diapers, in the cold weather, and visibly shocked and shaken. The document said it was not clear why the detainees were released in such conditions. Several videos shared by the Israeli army since the war began show hundreds of Palestinian men stripped to their underwears, sitting outside in the cold, sometimes blindfolded. United Nations Special Rapporteur on Palestine, Francesca Albanese, said that Israel has breached international law with its relentless bombardment of Gaza, shelling entire neighborhoods and killing thousands of innocent civilians. In a press conference held in Madrid, Albanese asserted that Israel has done a number of things that are highly illegal, emphasizing in the need to respect international humanitarian law in order to protect civilians, prisoners of war, and sick and wounded. Albanese highlighted that major hospitals have been closed, bombed, or seized by the occupation army. People are now dying not only due to the bombs, but also because of the lack of adequate health infrastructure to treat their injuries. Albanese reiterated that nothing justifies what Israel is doing. The Palestinian telecommunications company Paltel Group announced Friday that gradual return of communication services in different areas of the besieged Gaza Strip after more than a week of competitive disruption. According to their post on X, they regretted the death of 14 employees killed in the ongoing Israeli aggression against Gaza. The company explained that despite the severity and difficulty of the circumstances, its teams managed to restore basic services to users as usual. Ooredoo, one of the two mobile network operators in the West Bank, also announced the partial restoration of its services. Mexico and Chile have asked the International Criminal Court (ICC) on Friday to investigate possible crimes against civilians in Gaza and the October 7th Hamas attack against Israel. During his daily news briefing, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador asked the United Nations to bring about an immediate ceasefire in the Israeli-Hamas war. Obrador called for members with veto rights at the United Nations Security Council to rise to the occasion and prove that respect for human rights is imperative. Any ICC proceedings would be separate from South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. On the other hand, the Israeli embassy in Mexico regretted the announcement of the Mexican government and added that its country maintains the legitimate right of self-defense in accordance with international law.
We are going to be for peace. We do not take sides with any of the parties, although it sounds redundant. Neither for Israel nor for the Palestinians. Not for this Hamas group. We don't want to. What we don't want is for innocent people to lose their life. And hopefully the United Nations will act. And that is why the UN Security Council should meet with only one purpose: one item on the agenda. To approve a ceasefire.
In Uganda, during the 19th summit of the Non-Aligned Countries Movement, the representative of Cuba ratified the condemnation of the genocide against the Palestinian people. Representing the G77 plus China, the Cuban Vice President Salvador Valdez intervened in the opening day of the event, where he made proposals to put an end to the aggression in Gaza. Therefore, the proposals were the immediate ceasefire, international protection, the holding of an international peace conference, and the entry of Palestine as a full member of the United Nations. He also insisted that cooperation and solidarity are key to face the current challenges of the world.
Cuba suggests the non-aligned movement being consistent with the historical support to the Palestinian people. The non-aligned movement should, as I said, carry out without further delay 4 practical actions as a contribution to the efforts intended to halt the current act of barbarism. 1. Call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the rest of the occupied Palestinian territories in all possible forums. 2. To support the urgent dispatch of international protection mission authorized by the UN General Assembly to the Gaza Strip with a key mandate to guarantee the security and protection of the civilian population and facilitate the delivery of emergency humanitarian aid, including water and foodstuffs.
We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news, coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back. In Germany, tens of thousands of people took to the streets of Hamburg on Friday to protest against right-wing extremism. The turnout exceeded expectations. According to organizers, 130,000 demonstrators joined the protest, even though police figured the number of participants at 50,000. Demonstrators held banners and chanted slogans against the right-wing Alternative for Germany, or AfD, party. Germany's ruling parties on Thursday criticized the resurgent far-right opposition party over a report that the extremists met recently to discuss deporting millions of migrants, including some with German citizenship, sparking a series of protests in recent days.
From Cologne to Dresden, from Tübingen to Kiel, hundreds of thousands are taken to the streets in Germany these days to show their support for our democracy and against right-wing extremism. I was also there at a large rally at my home in Potsdam, because what we are currently experiencing here in our country really does concern us all, each and every one of us.
The United Kingdom government announced the dismissal of 2,800 steel workers following the closure of blast furnaces at Port Talbot plant. The Indian company Tata Steel reported that the British government made an investment of $634 million to switch from coal-fired blast furnaces to electric arc furnaces, leaving more than 2,800 workers unemployed. It was stated that legal consultations would be initiated as part of a plan to restructure and transform the headquarters in Wales. In this sense, the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak justified the government's investment with the commitment of his administration with the steel production. This plan is intended to reverse more than a decade of losses and transition from the legacy blast furnaces to a more sustainable green steel business. In the UK, protesters from the animal rights group People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals PETA gathered outside the British Defence Ministry in London on Friday to urge the government to stop using real fur in the iconic bearskin caps for members of the King's Guard. The protesters were dressed in bear masks and covered themselves in fake blood and arrows wounds as they laid on a Union flag on the sidewalk. Early this month, the rights group released an undercover investigation video that showed hunters shooting black bears with crossbows in Canada. Senior campaign manager for PETA UK, Kate Werner, said the tradition can still continue, but the caps can be made from fabric. Meanwhile, the British Defence Ministry said all the fur used in the hats comes from the legal and licensed hunts.
The Ministry of Defence continues to purchase bearskin caps for the King's Guards, which are made from the fur of slaughtered bears. A recent expose by PETA revealed that bears are shot, with guns or with high-powered crossbows, which is an extremely excruciating, cruel way to be killed. They're baited with sticky sweet food, lured to a baiting site and then shot and killed. Yeah, I mean, it's completely out of step with the King's apparent, beliefs and environmental concerns, but also it's out of step with the vast majority of the UK public. We know that 96% of people reject fur, and so all we want to do is to modernise these caps. The aesthetic will remain the same, the tradition can still continue, but they'll be made from a fabric that reflects 21st century values and that of the King.
In the United States, winter storms caused the death of at least 40 people and also damage to electrical structures. Authorities report that winter hit most of the country, leaving more than 85,000 homes without electricity and causing the cancellation of hundreds of flights. Also, snowfalls in some cities caused the closing of schools and offices. The local meteorological service warned that low temperatures and frost will continue throughout the weekend and urged the population to be attentive to the indications of emergency personnel. In the United States, a grand jury indicted Alec Baldwin on Friday on an involuntary manslaughter charge in 2021 fatal shooting during a rehearsal on a movie set in New Mexico, reviving a dormant case against the A-list actor. The special prosecutors brought the case before a grand jury in Santa Fe this week, months after receiving a new analysis of the gun that was used. Baldwin, the lead actor and co-producer on the Western movie Rust, was pointing a gun at cinematography Halyna Hutchins during a rehearsal on a movie set outside Santa Fe in October 2021 when the gun went off, killing her and wounding director Joel Sosa. Baldwin has said he pulled back the hammer but not the trigger, and the gun fired. World tourism will return this year to its pre-COVID-19 pandemic levels. This was reported on Friday by the World Tourism Organization, a United Nations agency specializing in that sector. According to the organization, some 1.3 billion tourists traveled abroad last year compared to 900 million in 2022 and 450 million in 2021. Last year's figure is 88% of the level in 2019, before the pandemic, a year in which a record number of 1.46 billion tourists traveled the world. The organization said the figures highlight the resilience and rapid recovery of tourism, and it noted that the recovery is already having a strong impact on economies, jobs, and opportunities for communities around the world. According to the United Nations agency, tourist arrivals should exceed the 2019 level by 2% this year, setting a new record. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.